We're standing in the National Gallery in Washington, D.C., in front of a full-length portrait by James McNeill Whistler. Whistler was an American artist, but spent most of his life in England, in London. This painting is called Symphony in White Number 1, The White Girl.
It seems to me this is Whistler showing off. It's only white, but look what I can do with that. Our sitter is Joanne Heffernan. She's cloaked in this white garment against a white background, and in many ways, the predominant color is white.
These beautiful white sleeves of her dress, the puff around the shoulder, the pleats at the bodice, the pattern on the curtains behind.
And Whistler submitted this to the Royal Academy show. It was not accepted. He then attempted to submit it to the annual salon in Paris. It was not accepted, and instead it was shown at the Salon de Réfugiés in Paris. This hung in the same exhibition as some of the real landmarks in the history of French modernism.
The Salon des Réfugiés was an exhibition of works that had been refused, rejected by the art establishment. And so what was it about this painting that so challenged the norms of painting in the late 19th century?
Whistler's career moves on. He begins to incorporate musical words as titles. He also has nocturnes, arrangements, and he also uses the word composition. So Whistler is using musical words to describe his paintings, and he does so with a very specific goal in mind.
When we listen to music, we don't expect to be told a story. We expect to be moved by the sounds and the rhythms. Why should we then expect anything different from painting?
And our initial desire is to create a kind of narrative around this. Why is she wearing a white dress? Why has she dropped flowers? That's where our minds want to go. What Whistler aspired to do was to create a beautiful painting. That's it.
Behind us is a painting by John Singer Sargent, another American artist also spending time in England. And in that painting, we read her personality in her face, in her pose. In comparison, Whistler presents us with a face that seems rather blank.
She looks off to the side. She's not engaging the viewer. In the Sargent painting, there's no doubt that this was the portrait of a wealthy socialite. Instead, with Whistler's painting, it is Whistler's model.
And Whistler is saying art should be a special realm reserved only for beauty.
It's providing art this kind of elevated status. It's not required to provide us with a moral message. It's not even required to provide us with a subject. It can exist only as a beautiful work, one that brings one a kind of sensual joy just by looking and experiencing it.
And that idea of beauty was understood as a kind of remedy for the ugliness of modern industrial life. I think one of the things that would have also proved challenging to viewers in the 1860s is the looseness of the handling of the paint, especially on the bottom, where we really can't tell where the floor ends and the wall begins or the curtain begins. And the rug itself is painted very loosely, and we're very aware that we're looking at paint. And he hasn't worked hard to convince us that this is an illusion, that this is a rug.
This might have been a challenging painting for contemporaries to look at because in some ways, Whistler is breaking some of the rules that had been in place in the Western art world for centuries. There's no real sense of recession of space or perspective. The ground seems to be tilted. Whistler is rejecting this Western idea that one of the obligations of the artist is to create a realistic three-dimensional space on a flat canvas.
Like so many artists of this period, Whistler is inspired by the art of Japan. Japanese prints were introduced into Europe at this time and had an enormous impact. And we can see that especially in the flattening of the space, the way that that floor seems to tilt upward and reads as a flat decorative pattern instead of as a floor that recedes into space.
This is very much a part of that Japanese aesthetic that will become increasingly more common in Western art. The introduction of ukiyo-e prints from Japan created a different paradigm of art. And Whistler is getting started with that here with this image from 1862. But in the years that follow, he becomes increasingly more fascinated by Japanese aesthetics. We begin to see the introduction of Japanese accessories in a number of his portraits during this time. And it, in many ways, has its beginnings here.